All right. We back. It's part 2B of the Incomprehensible, Unexplainable Iceberg.
Possible colors.
And we jumping into impossible
colors. Started
colors.
this whole video and concept of this video until it became the largest video I've made to date. Impossible colors are colors that don't appear in normal everyday life, or colors that humans can't see visually. And while we may know that these colors should theoretically exist, or that we can try and quote, recreate them, there's still something about humans not being able to see or process something as simple as color.
That's trippy.
This may seem weird as how are we supposed to see colors we can't see? That doesn't make sense. And that means that we're about halfway down this iceberg and why it has taken so long to make. The human eye can see up to 10 million different colors, and while that might seem like a lot, there are very high ranges of colors that if we could see them, would exponentially increase the numbers the wilder we went. I am again not a scientist, nor am I an eye doctor, but humans see color with what are called cones and rods. These cones and rods interpret light that reflect off materials which make specific light waves reflect and hit off of, and are interpreted as color in our brains as the colors we see today. One facet, yes there are multiple, of impossible colors that are cones and rods and in turn eyes and brains, can't reach the levels needed to interpret and understand impossible colors because they're limited. Our eyes see the curve of these wavelengths and that interprets the colors to get what we can see. But the wavelengths that we can see overlap, and therefore can't reach the full potential of the color spectrum that is just beyond the grasp of our eyes. If the wavelengths didn't overlap and only were able to excite one cone, our eye could find other colors that don't exist. This is where some impossible colors live. For example, the easiest to find impossible color would be hyper green, where the color green is mostly in the middle wavelength of color. And if the cones in our eyes could see more of that medium cone, we could see a green that no one has ever seen.
That's crazy.
There are other colors that would fall in this area, but that's just one example. The other examples are what I like to call opposite colors. Opposite colors are a little more easy to explain. They're as simple as colors that, under normal circumstances, cannot be mixed, like red-green or yellow-blue. They're impossible to mix as the brain has mechanisms in place to fight the mixing of these colors on the cortex level, apparently. Who knows? Scientists have set up experiments to try and get the human eye to meld these colors together, and have to great result. But the human brain just can't comprehend it. With artists, everymen and everywomen, describing it as anything from a, quote, field of color, to dots intermingling, or an island of the color that they only could remember but for a moment.
Hey guys, you should drop me a subscribe and a comment so that we can skip these ads.
And lastly, the easiest to understand and by proxy explain are what called chimerical colors, which are colors that our eyes can't see, but our brain can. The three main examples are a little diagram right here. They are Stygian blue, best experienced by either staring at yellow for an extended period of time, which will make your eyes perceive a dark blue after image, and then looking at black, therefore making a color darker than black. The effect can also be experienced by staring at a light, not for too long please, as that's bad for your eyes, and then closing them. The afterimage that you can see when your eyes are closed is a form of Stygian blue. Self-luminous red is the best experience of the inverse way of staring at green for a long time, which causes an afterimage of red to appear. And when you stare at something white, it gives the result of something brighter than white, while simultaneously red. Very weird. And finally, hyperbolic colors are kind of the intermingling of these two, where if you were to stare at bright cyan, it would give the afterimage of orange. So if you were then to stare at an orange background, you would experience a version of orange that was more than 100% orange. If you want to try any of these for yourself, go ahead. If you need to pause the video on this little chart I found, go right ahead.
What the hell, man?
In the meantime, though, the rest of us will be going another layer deeper on this iceberg, as we continue to find weirder and weirder, less comprehensible things deeper below the waves.
Alright guys, we getting weird.
Deeper below the waves. Skyquakes. Skyquake is not the Transformers toy. Let's get that across right now.
I don't remember that Transformer.
Stand and visually, but they're not the same thing. Skyquakes are actually loud booms in the sky that have no apparent cause. They have been reported and heard across the globe, and sound like things as loud as cannon fire, artillery, and loud thunder. They have many different names, and have been reported as early as the early 1800s all across the globe. So while skyquake is a common term in the English language, you might have heard them called something different depending on where you grew up. One of the latest occurrences happened in 2017, when in Alabama a skyquake rocked the region and made such a mess that it caused many to call 911 out of fear something bad had happened. There is no apparent cause or even a leading hypothesis of what causes skyquakes to really happen. Many say that it's small earthquakes underground that don't actually shake the ground but just make a very loud sound.
That's
The people on the
crazy.
other side say it's meteors penetrating the upper atmosphere that cause sonic waves to ripple out, but would allow the meteors to burn up upon entry. And of course, there's the theory that it's aliens, with ships and beings we can't see which would allow them to make noise without leaving a trace. That goes into theory that it's all
Guys,
military testing.
it's
actually the
aliens.
work of a long speculated but never proven aircraft that aircraft bucks have dubbed Aurora. Whatever it is, or whatever your theory on it is, don't worry, there's plenty left to speculate. -1/12. -1/12 is what you get if you add every single natural number together. And to remind you, I am not a scientist, nor am I a mathematician for that matter. And this is where those two facts will become more and more evident very quickly. According to this guy right here, I'm going to butcher this name, Srinivasa Ramanujan, whose name I will not be butchering any further because he deserves recognition for the leaps and bounds he helped make in mathematics, all while being independently taught. But according to this guy, if you were to add 1 plus 2 plus 3 forever and ever and ever, you would end up with the answer of -1/12.
What?
Now this alone sounds crazy, and like it shouldn't make sense.
It's crazy.
Let me just say that before you do. Adding positive numbers should never be able to equate to a negative. And on top of that, should never be able to equal a fraction.
Yeah, I don't get it,
And again,
Haas.
the answer is an awkward, we don't know. Some scientists and mathematicians are almost certain that if you were to add up every single natural number, you would get -1/12. And
What?
others are just certain that it would just be a simple infinity. But then you get into other problems with infinity. And trust me, we'll get there. But if you look at these math equations, or better yet, if you watch this video by number file, they can explain it. At least -1/12 times better than I can. But of course this outcome doesn't come without detractors, as there is no known way of adding every single integer together without there just being more. So how do you prove it one way or the other? You can't, and that's why this one is on the iceberg. And the next are also roughly about math and the same overall thing, that humans just have an incredibly hard time understanding and comprehending math at those volumes. You see, numbers
Don't
are
get it,
weird,
bro.
and they
I
will
don't
get
get
even
it.
weirder the higher or lower you get. For example, imaginary numbers. Probably forgot about these after high school, but imaginary
God,
numbers
I hate
are real
imaginary
that
numbers.
equate to a negative square. That doesn't make sense to me. Like I said, I'm not a mathematician, but they're very important. Imaginary numbers
negative
are technically
quadrant.
understandable, but impossible to comprehend at the same time. This little fancy I right here is what you'll see when we're talking about these. And let me reiterate, again,
We used a
not
J.
mathematician.
I don't know why.
Until recently,
Oh,
I
right,
always
because I
got
studied
beat up on
electronics and
imaginary
I
numbers
is
when I talk about
current.
them because imaginary numbers really help me understand stuff towards the bottom of this iceberg. Imaginary numbers are used a lot more than people might think, and are extremely important in determining and helping understand systems in electricity, as well as, of course, math. But I like electricity more. They help quantify and fill out areas where we know there's something, but we can't determine or figure out exactly what those things are. So we need a placeholder. The easiest way I've heard it described is kind of like the number 0. We'll get to 0 later, but there was a time before we even had the number 0, if you want to think about it.
God
Makes
damn.
sense. Something to describe nothing, or a placeholder. Before then, we would just put in spaces. It's an idea that really doesn't have many cases until you need a case for it. So we use I and put it in places where we know we need to determine calculations or have to be ready for a variable where the answer is essentially unknown. And that,
That's weird,
even though
man.
a very odd way of putting it, is what I think a lot of ideas boil down to. Knowing a lot of parts of the formula while not knowing specific individual aspects and having to work around them. The first stage of memory loss. This, along with imaginary colors, were among the two main topics I knew about going into this video that we as humans just can't comprehend or solve. As someone who has had a family member personally affected by memory loss, like many others, it's a very hard journey for the people around them to go through. And the truth is that as of now we don't actually know the distinction of the first stage of Alzheimer's. That's a very tricky topic and subject to nail down, as the concept itself, timing, stage, and more are almost entirely impossible to nail down. We know that there are 7 stages to the global deterioration scale. From stage 1 of no cognitive decline or no memory loss, where most people are, to stage 7 of very severe cognitive decline and late stage dementia. And each stage is usually marked and noted with specific characterizations and symptoms that help the affected person along the way, as well as their caregivers give them the best life going forward. It's extremely hard to calculate and figure out if forgetting keys or forgetting people's names is a sign of everyday forgetfulness or something serious after
Captain
all.
Keys from Halo.
And that's why this topic is so hard. While technically the second stage of deterioration, this stage is unknown about the expected length, when symptoms usually start or if they can be slowed at this stage. At this early stage, it's also very easily confused and mixed with normal age-related cognitive decline. And as of
Trippy,
now,
man.
there are virtually no clinical tests that may remain
Take care of your
undetectable for
brain,
quite a
man.
while going
Your
forward. In the meantime, though,
neuroplasticity.
there are plenty of ways to help slow down cognitive decline, like a healthy diet, good sleep habits, reducing stress, and challenging your brain. And one of the ways you can challenge your brain is today's No, I don't have a sponsor. That's a joke. This is an actual call to be sure and try and reduce stress in your life. As well as stay hydrated. Eat a healthy diet and have a good day, alright? That last one was for me, not a sponsor. But still, I mean it.
Meet the Husk, one of the sharpest and
Again,
most
guys,
versatile
you can
Japanese-inspired
subscribe and
knives in
drop
the
me a
world.
comment,
For
and
years,
maybe we'll
this
be
knife
able
was
to
only
afford
available to
YouTube Premium.
So, you've made it to the end of part 2. I want to thank you very much for reaching the end of this part. Tried to get this one out a little faster than the last one, but I know it also took,
Hey,
as
man,
of right now, almost a
this
month.
has been one of the most fascinating reaction series I've done. This was part 2B of the Incomprehensible, Unexplainable Iceberg. Other parts will be here and here, or here and here. Check out the original video by GRDN. That's all you gotta type into YouTube, GRDN. Alright, until next time, it's your boy Tony Vogue, E-Boy Zombie Slayer.